Thank you, sir. Good evening, students. Let us wait for few other students to join in. In the meantime, we had discussed the chapter supply in the last session. So anything to do with supply, on the chapter of supply, you could ask any questions if you have missed out any concept, because supply is the base for charge of tax. Supply is the base for levy of GST, which is today's topic. So if you have understood supply, then this session will be fruitful, that we are understanding both together. Okay. I know few students might be held up with some students conference. So students may not join, but students who are not actually attending that should be attending this session, because charge of GST is important, because you understand the charge. And the chapter is so very elaborate that we will be covering various concepts in this. We will cover the concept of reverse charge. We will also cover the concept of composite supply. A detailed session, I think one session for the complete these topics will not be helpful. You have to watch the recorded videos. You will have to go through it and then listen to this, because this is in a capsule format of what we have covered in the previous sessions, what we have covered in the detailed session. Please go through that video, then you have to attend this video. Otherwise, this will be just like a very rush session for you. But I will try to make it interactive by posing questions and by posing few important pointers where you will understand the concept of reverse charge in detail. Good evening, everyone. Yes, so now we are good to start. So we will discuss today what is called as charge of GST. What is a charge? Charge is something which is there, but because of the charge, you're able to collect it. There is a law which says that GST rate is at 18%, GST rate is at 5%. You have to file monthly return. Is that sufficient? No. There has to be a very important thing called as charge. That if you have this charge, you are giving this power, then you can collect the tax, and the charge should be clear. If the charge is not clear, then you cannot collect the tax. If there is even little bit of ambiguity, it means there is no clarity, you cannot collect. So the charge has to be clear, and the charge is the one which drives the whole act. If there is a charge, only then you pay the tax. If there is no charging section, you don't pay the tax. The power to levy tax for any matter in any tax is coming from the Constitution, right? Similarly, in GST also, the charge of GST, the power to levy is given by the Constitution, that the taxes on the transaction of goods and services can be collected by the central government and state government. That is mentioned, right, in Article 246A through the 101st Amendment Act. Once that is there, then we are able to collect GST. Otherwise, somebody can question directly to the Constitution saying that, how are you collecting taxes in the GST? Now, you have a power under the Constitution, so they can say that we are collecting GST based on the power which is given to us through the Constitution. The basis for the charge is the taxable event. The taxable event is the basis for the charge, right? And what is the taxable event in our case? In the case of GST directly, it is supply. We know this previously, that in case of manufacture, in case of excise, manufacturing was the charge point. And in case of capital gains, transfer is the thing. When you transfer, then capital gain is levied. Correct? So we know that when is a charge triggered. Once a charge is triggered, the levy attracts. Okay. In CGST, we know, but just for people who do not know, we'll try to rush this up. What is CGST? CGST stands for central goods and service tax. It is applicable on supplies within the state, and tax collected will be shared to the center. Directly it goes to the central government. SGST is opposite of it. SGST stands for state GST law. So if you are in the state of Andhra Pradesh, you will have Andhra Pradesh Goods and Service Tax Act. If I am in Karnataka, the Karnataka GST Act will apply to me. Each state's GST will be separate. So, sir, in GST law, we said that one India, one tax. What happened to that? It is still one India, one tax. It is same tax, but governed by the respective state. And since it is governed by the respective state, the each state has to have its own GST law. So, the GST law, which is there in the center, 99% is same for all the states. So all the states also will have the same act, except some administrative matters, there could be difference, but each state will have two laws. So if you are in the state of Andhra Pradesh, you will have two laws. One is central GST law, which is applicable to all the state, and one for your specific state, which is your Andhra Pradesh Goods and Service Tax Act. Okay, so these two act will be there for you. It will be for me in my state and for any other state as well. So then what happens to a person who is in a special category of a region called as union territory? So for a union territory, what all taxes will apply? Yes, Sriram, Rashmi, Ina, any of you can answer. UTGST Act. Okay. Is that a final answer? I need a complete answer. Correct. No, UTGST and SGST. How can there be a SGST in a UT? If it is UT, it cannot be S. Okay, so be careful. In case of, oh, somebody saying IGST. No, no. So what happens is, in case of any intrastate transaction, what happens? What taxes do we apply if you're making a sale within the state? UTGST, I'll come to your point, Sangeetwani, but just tell me if it's just a normal UTGST, then we'll categorize with legislation, without legislation. SGST will not come in. Sriram and Rashmi and others have told SGST. SGST applies where there is a state. So if there is a intra-state transaction within the state transaction, you will levy CGST and SGST. Correct? Now, instead of a state, you have a union territory. So in that situation, you will apply instead of SGST and CGST. CGST is there from the center. So it applies to all the states and all the union territories. In case of a union territory, the SGST Act will not be there. You will have a UTGST Act. So in the union territory of Daman and Diu, and let's take a union territory example of Daman and Diu. In that union territory, you will have Daman and Diu Goods and Service Tax Act and the CGST Act. So any transaction within the union territory of D&D, GST Act and CGST Act will apply. Okay. So instead of the state GST, UT comes in. And when a a union territory, does any sale transaction from a union territory to any other state, then what will the seller in that union territory charge? What is the difference between SGST and UTGST? That is what I'm saying, Sriram, that in case of a state, right, state GST will be there, which is called as SGST. And in case of a UTGST, it will be CGST will be there, and then UTGST will be there. SGST is for a state, UTGST is for a union territory. Okay. So union territory again has some complication, but at least till here you understood. If UT sales, yeah, our question. If UT sales some goods outside the state, what will it charge? Because we know that, Rashmi, if UT sells some goods in the same union territory, it's not a state. A state is different, a union territory is different. If a union territory charges something within the union territory itself, then it will charge CGST and UTGST, not SGST, because there is no SGST in a UT. If there is UT, then there is no SGST. If there is SGST, there is no UTGST. So in the UT within the same locality, within the same territory, if something has been sold, it will charge CGST and UTGST. Okay. And my question is not yet been answered. If some transfer happens from a UTGST to another state, it can move, right? There's no restriction. UTGST ऐसा नहीं है कि ये देश के बाहर ही है, वहां से कुछ transaction नहीं हो सकता है. UTGST can still do any kind of a trade within the state and outside the union territory also. It can sell to another state or it can sell to some other union territory. So what will be the charge it will make? Somebody is saying CGST. Is that right? No, that's not right. Correct. IGST will be applicable because any kind of interstate transaction, interstate would mean interstate, inter-union territory, or from one union territory to another state. All of this is classified as an interstate transaction. Such interstate transaction, you will have to levy IGST. Got it? So you levy IGST. We understood till now, it was clear. Now, there are some union territories with legislature. Generally, union territories are there without legislature, but some union territories, there are special union territories which have legislature also. So when they have legislature, then they have power to collect taxes, right? Then they don't need a special act for them. They can do their own act, right? So union territory with legislature, which is Delhi, okay, a famous Delhi, right? There's been so much of money floating around in Delhi. That's the reason we have seen so much of news in Delhi, right? So if they can collect excise, why can't they collect GST? So that's why there, in the case of Delhi, in the case of Pondicherry, okay, they are union territories with legislature. Since they are union territories with legislature, they, Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir, and Puducherry. My friend has clearly messaged the three union territories which are with legislature: Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir, and Puducherry. These three UTs have legislature, so they will have their own state GST. They will not have that special UT GST. Now, Delhi may you will not get Delhi UT GST law. You will have Delhi GST law itself. So that's the difference, because the law says if it is a union territory with legislature, that will be considered as a state. It will have the power to collect and distribute. That's why it has a legislature. So since it has a legislature, that will have the collection equivalent to a state. Okay. In case of a union territory without legislature, why there's a distinction? Because the governing body over there is the central government. The central government will appoint a person who will manage the taxes. But in case of a union territory with legislature, that legislative authority, okay, itself will manage the tax collections. That's why they will have their respective GST law of that union territory. So a union territory with legislature is equivalent to a state for the purpose of GST. सो टैक्सेबल टेरिटरी में क्या इंक्लूड होता है? टैक्सेबल टेरिटरी मतलब जो भी टेरिटरी है, अगर मैं कर्नाटका बोलता हूं तो कर्नाटका की जो बाउंड्री है उसे कहते हैं टैक्सेबल टेरिटरी फॉर द स्टेट जीएसटी। और जब सीजीएसटी आ जाता है तो फुल इंडिया कवर हो जाता है। So the question was, what is covered under the taxable territory? In case of a taxable territory, will be the locality or that state. In case of a state of Karnataka, the complete state's transactions gets covered there as a taxable territory. In case of a union territory, the union territory's boundaries gets covered. And in case of a CGST and IGST, the territory is bigger. The SGST covers whole of India, and even the IGST covers whole of India. Correct. So in that case where UT is with legislature, the applicable thing will be CGST and SGST. Correct. But you have to derive why it is SGST and not directly say why it is SGST. Because it is a UT with legislature, then it will be CGST and SGST. Clear? बहुत सारी GST बोल रहा हूं मैं. I hope you understood the difference between which GST I'm talking. In one place it is S, one place it is UT, one place it is I, one place it is C. ठीक है, आगे बढ़ते हैं. So CGST, SGST, IGST. IGST, we saw the examples. It stands for integrated GST, and it is applicable on interstate and import transactions. Let's say when I import anything, I pay customs duty and IGST. And this tax collected is shared between the center and the state. Okay? To make you understand better, let's have a pictorial representation. This is a supplier. This is the location of supplier, and this is the place of supply. This is the location of supplier, and this is the place of supply. If the location of the supplier and the place of supply both are in one state, then what is it? Is it called as an intrastate or is it an interstate? Yes, it is clearly an intrastate supply, right? What are the people on my BOS app doing? Come on, respond. Ms. Pratima, the definition of GST in India is little different than what it is there in direct tax. Correct. Everybody is given a correct answer. In this case, it is an intrastate transaction, where the location of supplier and place of supply is in the same state. It is an intrastate supply. You will charge CGST and SGST. If it is a union territory with legislature, CGST and that respective SGST itself. And if it is a UT without legislature, then CGST and UTGST. Clear? Now, if the location of supplier is in Karnataka and place of supply is in Tamil Nadu, then it is a correct IGST transaction. It is the interstate supply, and what will be levied? IGST will be levied. Clear? Now, let's proceed with what is the extent of India. Okay, CGST Act Section 1 itself says that CGST Act extends to the whole of India, and SGST Act says that it extends to the whole of the state. Now, when it says CGST Act extends to the whole of India, India is what? India is defined. India is defined under Section 2, subsection 56 as territory of India as referred to in Article 1 of the Constitution, its territorial waters, seabed and subsoil underlying such waters. Okay, seabed and subsoil underlying such waters. So India is not only the boundaries or the land where you go and end it. ठीक है, आप चले गए हो घर छोड़ के, चले जाओगे, चले जाओ, where will you reach? You will reach some point, right? आप पहुंच गए हो कन्याकुमारी, कन्याकुमारी के तट पे पहुंच गए हो आप, एंड देर इज अ लास्ट लैंड, इसके आगे आप पैर रखोगे तो पता है आपको क्या हो जाएगा? सो यू विल नॉट स्टेप। तो आपको लगता है कि जहां पे आपका लास्ट पैर रख सकते हो दैट इज इंडिया? नहीं, दैट इज नॉट इंडिया। उसके आगे भी टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स है, वो भी इंडिया है। ठीक है, तो आप वहां पे जाओगे तो भी आप इंडिया के गवर्नमेंट के अंडर ही हो, आपको फिर से लेके आ सकते हैं। ठीक है, तो टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स का क्या लेवल है, क्या लिमिट है, वो हम नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में देखते हैं। सो दैट इज टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स। फिर सी बेड, ठीक है, जो पानी के नीचे है, seabed, subsoil underlying such waters, then continental shelf, exclusive economic zone, or any other maritime zone as referred in the Territorial Waters, Continental Shelf, EEZ, and other Maritime Zones Act. So, एक act है which defines what is the range of India. So that is one. फिर उसके अलावा the airspace above. That's the reason you see that when any foreign flights are coming in or any foreign uh, air vessels are coming in, you can still detect that they have entered the territory of India through the radar system. Okay, so doesn't mean that land and water only is India. Even the sky above the land of Indian territory is India. The airspace above its territory and territorial waters is also India. ठीक है, सो टेरिटरी ऑफ इंडिया, आप कन्याकुमारी गए हो, वहां से आगे पानी तक और ऊपर भी जाओगे आप सेम लेवल पे, दैट इज ऑल्सो इंडिया। गुड इवनिंग सुमित, बहुत लेट आ गए आज। ठीक है, सो दिस इज व्हाट इज इंडिया, द लैंड, वाटर्स, स्काई एंड बिलो। ना हम बात कर रहे थे टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स, व्हाट इज टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स। आप यहाँ पे हो लैंड पे, लास्ट पॉइंट पे, दिस लुक्स लाइक आप यहाँ पे गिरोगे तो कुछ नहीं होगा, लेकिन पिक्टोरियल रिप्रेजेंटेशन है, आप यहाँ से गिरोगे तो भी डूबोगे। ठीक है, सो डोंट ट्राई दैट। बट द टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स इज अप टू 12 नॉटिकल माइल्स फ्रॉम द बेस लाइन। ठीक है, यहाँ से अप टू 12 नॉटिकल माइल्स इज टेरिटोरियल सी। देन अप टू 12 नॉटिकल, अप टू कंटीजियस जोन, वहां से up to 12 miles is again contiguous zone, or that up to 200 nautical miles from the baseline is exclusive economic zone. ठीक है, सो द लैंड एंड जो भी आप स्विमिंग करते हो या बीच पे जाते हो, आप हार्डली कुछ पहुंच पाते हो यहाँ तक, यहाँ तक, उसके आगे भी पानी है। सो द इंडियन शिप्स और बिगर शिप्स or the cruise can grow up to this level. You cannot go by yourself. So वहां पे भी up to 200 nautical miles from the baseline is exclusive economic zone. Till that point is called as India. Okay, वहां तक क्या होगा? नीचे you have any kind of submersive kind of instruments also, where Indian Navy goes there and protects the waters also. और उसके आगे जो भी है that is called as high seas. ठीक है, so up till this point is the continental shelves. That is the point till India is covered. ठीक है, so we got to know what is India. So the CGST Act extends to the whole of India. SGST Act extends the whole of that state, and state includes union territory with legislature, which we all know, Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir. UTGST law फिर किसके लिए अप्लाई होता? UTGST Act extends to union territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadar and Nagar Haveli, and Daman and Diu. This is one union territory, Ladakh and Chandigarh. Okay. Now levy and collection. Since we have understood the basic, now when we can go to the section of levy. Section 9 says, subject to the provision of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called as the Central Goods and Service Tax Act on all intrastate supply of goods and services. Intrastate means within the state. There shall be levied a tax called CGST Act on all intrastate supplies of goods or services, except on the supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So GST is levied on supply of all goods and services, except on supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. On what value? On the value which is determined under section 15, and at what rate, and at such rates not exceeding 28% as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council. So the government is saying, giving full power under section 9, saying that in section 9, the levy provision is which says that you can levy a tax on intrastate supply on everything except supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. On what value? On the value which is determined under section 15. And what rates? Rates will be specified, but the rate cannot exceed 28%. 20%. 20% इसमें है, 20% SGST में है. But sir, you tell me, sir, how is 28%? When I buy a car, they are levying GST rate of 28% and they're levying cess also. So effectively, I'm paying 40%. But this act says that you cannot exceed 20%. How is it possible? Nistala, 28% is the highest rate of GST which can be levied on goods. But this is saying no, that it cannot exceed 20%. Then how can it be 28%? Good. Sukanya and Rashmi have given correct answer. That Pooja, right? Few other people have given correct answer that yes, it is 20%. There's no mistake in this. It is 20%. It cannot exceed 20% under this act, and it cannot exceed 20% under SGST Act. Because what act we are reading? We are reading section 9 of the CGST Act. CGST में maximum 20%, SGST में maximum 20%. So the maximum GST rate of the GST tax cannot exceed 40%. So that's why the 28% on the car is 14% under CGST and 14% under SGST. 14% under CGST and 14% under SGST. That makes it 28%, not only CGST, which gives it as 28%. So maximum is 20%. Now the government is come up a higher rate of 14%. 14 plus 14 makes it 28. Okay, then cess is extra. Cess is a separate. Now, section 9 says that then it further says that the central tax on supply of petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel shall be levied from an effective date which will be notified later. Which means what? First, we understood there is a levy. In the levy, what is excluded? Alcoholic liquor for human consumption is gone. That is gone. Item gone. Then what is levied? 5 petroleum products: petrol crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel. On these 5 petroleum products also, GST is not levied on this today, but it can come anytime in the future, which will be levied from such date as will be notified by the government. So whenever government notifies on these 5 products, the levy of GST can come in. But on alcoholic liquor for human consumption, it will never come in. So what else is levied? So if GST is not levied, do you think, good evening, Sushil Kumar. So do you think on alcoholic liquor, is it free? And on this five petroleum products, is the GST free? Wow, that will be good, no? That alcoholic liquor के ऊपर GST नहीं है तो गवर्नमेंट सबको क्या करने दे रही है? Be in your own spirits. Is the government saying be in your spirits or something else? And petroleum, the 100 rupees. Today I refilled my petrol tank at 100 rupees per liter. When I was young, I had seen petrol at the rate of 40 rupees. It's become more than double. So is the government saying, ठीक है, GST नहीं लगेगा अभी? Not exceed 20% means some supply levy tax till 40%. No, Rashmi, it means that government, if they want, through the recommendation of the council, they can bring any item and say 20 plus 20, 40% can be levied. They have that power, but for now, they have kept a maximum rate of 14%. Come on. My question is on these two products, which is alcoholic liquor for human consumption and five petroleum products. Clearly, we know that GST is not levied. Correct. So my question is are these products free from GST? Are the products free from taxes? There's no taxes levied on these 5 plus 1 6 products. Not free from taxes. Okay, at least you're clear. You've got up, stood up and said that yes, नहीं इंडिया में कुछ free नहीं मिलता है. You don't get anything free. So in these products also, GST is not there, but it is not free from taxes. Then what is levied? Excise duty is applicable. What excise duty? Because excise duty also, you have to be careful, friends, that excise duty can be state excise duty or central excise duty. Petrol is not levied in GST, but under other, which was before GST. What was other? Customs duty was there, VAT was there, central sales tax was there. What was there before, which will be levied? They are taxable under state law. Which one is taxable? Suganya has given a correct answer on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. State excise is levied. VAT is not levied. State excise is levied. Okay. And petroleum products, on petroleum products, what is levied? Petrol and diesel from coal, but SGST, CGST applicable on coal. Yes, CGST is applicable on coal, but on petrol and diesel, GST is not applicable because petrol and diesel doesn't come from coal, no? Might be one of the products can be petrol and diesel, but predominantly petrol and diesel doesn't come from coal. On petroleum and other 5 products, 2 taxes are levied. In case of alcoholic liquor, only one state excise, but in case of 5 petroleum products, central excise is levied. Central excise and VAT in case of intrastate, and if it is interstate, then central excise and CST, central sales tax, is levied. Okay, alcoholic liquor, state excise, and in case of petroleum products, central excise and VAT or CST is levied. Okay. So we understood 9 now. 9 says that there shall be levied a tax called central sales tax and service tax, central goods and service tax on all intrastate supplies of goods and services. Similarly, in your state also you'll have this law, and it will tell that there shall be levied a tax called the state goods and service tax on all intrastate supplies. Okay. Moving forward. That was section 9, 9, 1, and 9, 2. Let's proceed forward to 9 subsection 3. This is very important. 9 subsection 3 says, so should we remember all of these sections? Important sections you will have to remember. Section 9K, all the subsections also you have to remember. Okay. So if interstate, then central excise and CST is levied. You're right. If it is interstate, then central excise and CST will be levied on those 5 petroleum products. Now the government may, on the recommendation of the council by notification, specify the categories of supply of goods or services, the tax on which shall be paid on reverse charge basis by the recipient. Okay. What is reverse charge? We'll come to know. But 9.3 says that reverse charge ka power hai. 9.3 says reverse charge will apply. What is reverse charge? Will come in some time, but understand that section 9.1 gives the power to collect taxes by the supplier. 9.3 gives the power to the government to collect taxes from the receiver. And this is called as a reverse charge mechanism. Then 9.4 says the government may, on the recommendation of the council, collect taxes from the recipient, from the receiver, who is buying any goods from unregistered suppliers. So 9.3 also is reverse charge and 9.4 is also reverse charge. But the difference is 9.3, the supplier may be registered or the supplier may not be registered. But in case of a 9.4, if the supplier is unregistered, and also when only in case of a specified category of goods and specified category of recipient, only then 9.4 reverse charge will come. Otherwise, it will not come. Example, 9.3 is giving a notification, and in the notification, they've said that if a businessman takes any service from an advocate, then the tax will not be paid by the supplier, it will be paid by the receiver, which means the business person who is availing the services of a lawyer, he will pay GST under reverse charge. And that is example of 9.3 कि हमको notification में जाना पड़ेगा, notification में ढूंढ के then we have to say who is liable to GST. And in case of 9.4, the person who will pay will be the person who is specified person, जैसे real estate developer है. If the real estate developer is taking any services from an unregistered person, then he will have to pay. Okay, if he's taking the, say, cement, if he is buying cement from an unregistered person, तो ये खुश नहीं हो सकता है कि उसने मेरे को GST चार्ज नहीं किया, मेरा कॉस्ट बच गया है. नहीं, उसको अपने आप से पे करना पड़ेगा. He will have to pay on himself the reverse charge under 9.4. Rashmi, you have a doubt, if an unregistered person supply, then how can buyer claim ITC? If it's an unregistered person, right? Now you go to a shop, you buy a pen. The supplier is unregistered. He is not charging you GST. If he doesn't charge GST, then you don't have to pay GST. Okay? Supplier is not collecting, so you don't pay and you don't claim. But in 9.3 reverse charge, there is a separate thing which will come. But understand by now that if an unregistered person is supplying something to you don't pay taxes, so you can't claim ITC. You claim ITC only when you pay taxes to him. If he's not collecting taxes, you don't get any ITC. Clear till now? RCM, which type of impact in manufacturing unit? So if it's a manufacturing unit and if it is receiving some services from a supplier who is under the category of the reverse charge mechanism, then the manufacturer will have to pay GST on behalf of the supplier. Okay, that is the impact of reverse charge. Then 9.5 says that in case of a recommendation, specify categories interstate supply which shall be paid by an electronic operator, e-commerce operator. If there is some e-commerce operator, he will have to pay some taxes here. If I pay but then not file return, then buyer not claim ITC. Yes, that will come into the returns, because if you pay the taxes and if you don't communicate, how can the receiver claim it? He doesn't know whether you're paid or no. So that communication happens through this filing of return. Okay. What are the rates of GST? There are 7 rates of GST. Okay. 0%, 0.125%, 1.5%, 2.5%, 6%, 9%, 14%. So many rates are there. Double of this is the actual rate what we pay. Okay. Nothing much in the rates. This is what we have discussed. So we understood the levy. Now I said that just wait for some time, we will discuss on reverse charge. So now we'll discuss what is a reverse charge mechanism. The normal GST process is a supplier is supplying goods, the goods moves here, and then the payment comes here, right? Along with this price, what is included? GST is included. So you will charge GST, the receiver, while paying the price, he will pay the GST as well, correct? So he is a seller. When a seller is selling and receiver is receiving, who will pay taxes to the government? Seller itself. Receiver के पास government नहीं जाएगा. When you are a customer, you go to a bookstore and buy some book. And if the bookstore person is registered, so the registered person will pay taxes to the government. That is a normal tax. So the reverse of this is reverse charge, wherein a supplier is supplying to a receiver. Receiver pays the price of the goods, but the GST is not paid here. GST is paid by the recipient to the government. This is called reverse charge. This is the first scheme is called forward charge. The second case is a reverse charge. जब आप रिवर्स लेते हो गाड़ी में तो कार पीछे जाती है, करेक्ट? वैसे ही ये भी है कि रिवर्स चार्ज में सप्लायर टैक्स पे नहीं करता है गवर्नमेंट को, रिसिपेंट टैक्स पे करेगा गवर्नमेंट। ठीक है? Yes, Sriram, you have just known through the spirits that what is my next point. That reverse will also be taken as input. Correct. I will explain that. When supplier charges something, recipient can claim the ITC. Correct, because he's paying the taxes to the supplier and supplier is going to the government. Ultimately, government is getting tax either through a supplier indirectly, so he can claim the credit. In case of reverse charge, what is happening? Here, I am not paying taxes to him. I am paying taxes to the government. So for me, I am paying the value of the goods and I'm paying the taxes. So I can claim the tax credit for whatever reverse charge I pay. So reverse charge is not a burden, it is not an additional cost. It is similar, but the structure is different. And I can claim input tax credit on the reverse charge what I pay. Okay. RCM on registered person notified, no? So we'll come to that notification, Unikrishna, and discuss that in detail. Notification number 12. Sorry, notification number 13. RCM on unregistered vendor? No. Only in case of 9(4), where they are specifically said that will apply. Otherwise, if you are buying anything from an unregistered person, you don't have to pay GST. Okay, only if your category is falling under 9(4), then you have to pay. Now, take an example that there's a business is registered, it is doing a good job. Now, it takes some services of a chartered accountant, and this chartered accountant is not registered under GST. So will this company, who's a big company, have to pay GST under reverse charge, or should this chartered accountant pay GST? Company has to pay GST, CA will pay GST. Oh my God, okay. Only specified unregistered will come under RCM, right? Correct. If you are saying CA has to pay, if you are paying company has to pay, no, both the answers are wrong. If the CA is registered, he will pay the GST. If he crosses the limit, then he will register. If he's not crossed the limit, registration is not compulsory. So the CA will not pay the GST, and the company will not pay under reverse charge, because when we go to notification number 13, CA is not sitting in that notification. The government has not notified a chartered accountant under that notification. If they have not notified chartered accountants or a company secretary under that notification, then the company also need not pay GST under reverse charge. Okay. So in this case, a chartered accountant is not under reverse charge. So the company will not pay, and he is not registered, so he will not pay. So there is no tax implication at all. Is it possible, sir, that in spite of GST, that GST is not paid? Yes, it is still possible. It is not necessary that when you buy anything from an unregistered, then you have to pay GST. No, only under that 9(4), if you're buying under unregistered, that I clearly told you, the notified thing under that is a real estate. A real estate, a person who is doing construction of complex construction of building, he will have to pay under reverse charge when he is not satisfying certain conditions. But in all other cases, if you're buying from an unregistered person, you don't have to pay GST under reverse charge. If that person is unregistered and he is sitting under that category of that notification number 13, one of that person sitting there is an advocate. So if you're buying anything from an advocate, a lawyer, if you're taking his services, whether he's registered or unregistered, you will have to pay GST under reverse charge basis. Very good, Sriram, that you are check some purchase bill on manufacturing company. The vendor is registered on the GST, But mentioned on bill RCM applicable is yes. What are those products? So you are absolutely right that you have done a good observation that if he is registered, still you will have to pay under reverse charge if you are falling under the category of reverse charge notification. Notification number 13 is for reverse charge of services and notification number 2 is for reverse charge of goods. Whether goods are covered under RCM? Yes, goods are also covered under RCM. In construction service, limit is not applied. GST is mandatory. Yes, you're right. Got it? Forward charge and reverse charge. Reverse charge, as I said, can be of two types: 9(3) under CGST Act and 5(3) under IGST Act. 9(4) under CGST Act and 5(4) under IGST Act. 9(3) is on supply of specified category of goods or services. Nowhere it is mentioned the supplier is registered or unregistered, doesn't matter. Receiver is registered, you are availing these services from anybody, you pay reverse charge. 9(4), supply of specified category of goods or services made by an unregistered person to a specified class of recipients, then reverse charge. Clear? 9(3), 9(4), 9(3), 9(4 will be using repeatedly. 9(3) reverse charge is separate, 9(4) reverse charge is separate. 9(3) ka example is supply of goods taxable under reverse charge is cashew nuts, BD wrapper leaves, tobacco leaves, raw cotton, because these are all unorganized sector. They will not collect GST and pay to the government. So government said, अगर आप ऐसे कुछ चीजें परचेज करते हो तो आपको रिवर्स चार्ज पे भरना पड़ेगा. This is supply of goods taxable under reverse charge. This is only for your information. This is out of syllabus because supply of goods taxable under reverse charge is not applicable for you. Now, supply of services taxable under reverse charge, this is there for your syllabus. I was telling notification number 13. That notification number 13 says what are the categories on which you have to pay under reverse charge. Rate of reverse charge is always same percentage. Yes. What is the service? Had it been a forward charge, that same rate of tax has to be paid under reverse charge. No change in rate. Goods Transport Agency covered under RCM? Yes. Which rate? The same rate on the supply, on the forward charge. What is there under rate notification for supply? That will apply under reverse charge. Same rate. Not necessary 5% always, Rashmi. On some services like Goods Transport Agency, the rate is 5%. On advocate services, it is 18%. So various categories of reverse charges categories are there. On that category, what is the rate applicable? That will apply. It's not a universal rate. GST has 3-4 rates, right? 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. What is the rate applicable on that nature of service or that nature of product? That will apply on the reverse charge as well. Sale of second-hand car, reverse charge will apply. Why reverse charge will apply on sale of second-hand car? Is it there under this list? Used vehicles, yes. Used vehicles is there. You're right. Since it's a used vehicles, then reverse charge will apply. You're right. Okay, now let us, since this is not there in the syllabus, we will not concentrate much on this. We will concentrate on this, which is notification number 13. Should I remember this notification? Yes, you have to. Notification number 13 of 2017, CTR means central tax rate, because you have two category of notification. One is central tax, one is central tax rate. If it is concerned with rate, it comes with a special numbering. That's why notification number 13 of 2017 central tax rate will apply. Shall we go and quickly read this notification? What is there here? Let me share my screen on the notification part. Okay. So this is the RCM rate notification number 13 of 2017, which provides the categories. I'm not going through the category in the chronological order. We'll go on to the order which is relevant for us. Your service provided by an individual advocate, including a senior advocate or a form of advocates by way of legal services. So if a lawyer provides services to whom? So supplier of service, this is the category of service, supplier of service, and recipient of service. So if a lawyer provides any kind of a service, who will provide the service? Individual advocate, including a senior advocate or a firm of advocates, providing services to any business entity. Then the business entity will pay reverse charge. And what does it mean? The advocate, whether he's registered or unregistered, doesn't matter. If you are availing the services of an advocate, you have to pay. Who are you? You are a business entity. Then you have to pay GST under reverse charge. Okay. I'm confused. In case RCM, how to recipient pay tax and claim ITC? Very simple, Rashmi. You have to pay taxes to the government, disclose, pay taxes to the government through a challan. Okay. Once you pay the taxes through a challan, you will disclose that in your GST returns that I am paying taxes under reverse charge. Then you have to claim it. Claim that credit in the same return saying that I have paid this much of reverse charge. I want to claim this under a special category called credit on reverse charge payment. You mention that the credit will be available. Okay, so you have to report it correctly. That is also important. Once you understand the law, the application of law should happen in a correct manner. Since you will know the law, then you will apply it. That's why the knowing the law is very important, that you have to disclose that under the correct column. Then you can claim the credit. Okay. So lawyers, arbitral tribunal, services provided by an arbitral tribunal to a business entity, then the business entity have to pay and reverse charge. Services by way of sponsorship. So if you are providing any sponsorship, if you're sponsoring any company, then who is the recipient? If I am a body corporate or I am a partnership firm, I am giving any sponsorship amount, it means I'm getting some benefit, right? So the company who is receiving are generally the event which is being conducted. That event company will not pay the taxes. I will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge mechanism. So जब भी sponsorship का आए दिमाग में, then the person who is paying the sponsorship, he will pay GST under reverse charge. Okay. Services supplied by the central government or state government, excluding certain services. Any services by the central government, if a business entity receives, then the business entity will pay under reverse charge. Special mention is on the renting of immovable property. So if you're taking any property on renting from the government, then you, if you're registered under GST, then you have to pay reverse charge. Okay. services by way of renting of a residential dwelling. This is a new inclusion. If you are taking any residential dwelling for your business use, then you have to pay GST under reverse charge. But residential पे तो rent है ही नहीं है, correct? If you are using a residential dwelling for residential stay for a personal use, no GST. But if you are taking a rent residential dwelling for your official use, then you have to pay under reverse charge. Services supplied by a director of a company. If a director provides any services to the company, director is an employee. Is all the directors an employee? No, only the managing director is an employee. So employee providing services to the employer, no GST. But other than the capacity of an employee, you can provide some settings fees, you can provide professional services. If you are providing such services, then the director will not pay GST, the company will have to pay the GST. Security services provided by a security agency. Now, the security agency is not, if it's a corporate, then it will not. So they have said any person other than a body corporate. So if any person who is other than a body corporate, if he is providing some services to a registered person located in the taxable territory, then the recipient will have to pay the GST. ठीक है, सिक्योरिटी एजेंसीज होते हैं ना जो सिक्योरिटी सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करते हैं, अगर वो बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट है तो वो चार्ज करेगा, अगर वो बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट नहीं है तो आप रिवर्स चार्ज पे करोगे. Then supply of GTA services, ये in detail में पढ़ते हैं. We'll have a separate slide for this. So GTA services providing services to specified category of people, then specified category of people will have to pay. Then there are other normal services. ठीक है, so major services is what we have covered. Any clarification here? GST not applicable to SEZ, but RCM will apply to SEZ. SEZ GST will apply, no? When a SEZ is supplying anything to a unit in India, they will charge GST. And RCM is still applicable to them also, right? SEZ, they can export and they can do some domestic transactions also. So when they export, no GST, but when they do domestic transactions, GST will apply. Only security services, body corporate to check. You're right, correct. Okay, reverse charge. This is also shared, so you can go through this Word document also. Now, let us go to the important RCM. Sorry, the presentation was stuck. Okay, slide is now working. So we understood notification number 13. In case fixed assets, how to ITC claim if it is not for sale. Okay. So in input tax credit, there is no distinction on claim of ITC on furniture and ITC on normal goods. Once you buy a fixed assets, you can claim the credit as soon as you buy the fixed assets. You don't have to claim proportionately or partly. You can claim it fully. Okay. Okay. Now, let us get into the GTA service, Goods Transport Agency Service. Here you have two options. Okay. One is based on the GTA. Government has said if you are a goods transport agency service, मतलब जो goods एक जगह पे दूसरे जगह पे लेके जाके goods deliver करता है, like big car companies or any kind of manufacturing company, any kind of trading uses the service of big lorries and things. They supply the goods from one place to another place. They are called as a goods transport agency. Okay. So a goods transport agency. Kiran, is the PPT is not available with you? I will share it. But I think with the recorded videos, the materials would be there. But anyways, I will talk to the team and I will share the presentations. Now GTA. GTA क्या बोलता है? Is a goods transport agency who is transporting goods from one place to another place. Now, GTA has an option of payment of GST at 12% or payment of GST at 5%. So, if the GTA wants to pay, then he will pay GST at 12% and claim full input tax credit, or he will pay GST at 5% and not claim input tax credit. So, he has two options: pay GST at 12% and claim full input tax credit, or pay GST at 5% and don't claim credit. Suppose he agrees to pay GST at 12% and claim the credit. If he is supplying to any registered person, then he will pay GST under forward charge, correct? And if he is supplying to unregistered person and it is to notified person, I'll tell you 7 category of people are there. If you supply to them, still you have to pay under forward charge. And if you're supplying to anybody else, it is exempt. तो मोटा मोटी क्या हुआ कि जब जीटीए 12% चार्ज करेगा तब वो फुल आईटीसी ले सकता है, और जीएसटी जो पे करेगा वो रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन या फिर नोटिफाइड पर्सन को सप्लाई करता है, तो फिर 12% पे करके क्रेडिट ले लेगा. अगर किसी और को सप्लाई करता है तो एग्जेम्प्ट हो जाएगा. सेकेंड कैटेगरी आ जाते हैं, कलर्स में आपको पता चल जाएगा. ग्रीन मतलब फॉरवर्ड चार्ज, एंड दिस मेहंदी कलर मींस इट इज रिवर्स चार्ज. सो इफ इज पेइंग अंडर 5%, तो फिर वो क्रेडिट तो नहीं ले सकता है. कौन नहीं ले सकता है? जो पर्सन रिवर्स चार्ज पे करेगा नहीं, जो जीटीए है वो क्रेडिट नहीं क्लेम कर सकता. तो ही कैन नॉट क्लेम द क्रेडिट एंड ही इज सप्लाइंग इट टू अ रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन. देन the registered person, this registered person will have to pay GST under reverse charge applicable, and recipient who pays freight is liable to pay GST. ठीक है? Who is liable to pay freight? क्योंकि goods मूव कर रहा है सप्लायर से रिसिपेंट तक. अब किसकी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है उस जीटीए को करने की इन दोनों के बीच में? वो रिवर्स चार्ज पे करे. ठीक है? सप्लायर है, रिसीवर है. सप्लायर अग्री करता है कि मैं जीटीए को पे करूंगा और तुमको गुड्स पहुंचाऊंगा, तो सप्लायर जीटीए का रिसिपेंट बन जाएगा. सप्लायर एक और एग्जांपल में कहता है कि नहीं मैं तो कुछ पे नहीं करूंगा, ये तुम्हारी जवाबदारी है. तो रिसीवर बोलता है कि हाँ जीटीए तुम लेके आ जाओ, मैं तुमको पे करूंगा. जो जीटीए को अमाउंट पे करता है वो रिसिपेंट हो जाएगा. ठीक है? और अगर वो अनरजिस्टर्ड पर्सन को सप्लाई करता है, अनरजिस्टर्ड पर्सन में भी अगर वो 7 कैटेगरीज ऑफ नोटिफाइड पर्सन है तो फिर वो रिवर्स चार्ज पे करेंगे. अगर किसी और हो तो एग्जेम्प्ट है. मींस जीटीए पेज 5% एंड रिसिपेंट पे आरसीएम. अगर 5% है तो रिवर्स चार्ज ही रहेगा, अगर 12% है तो फॉरवर्ड चार्ज ही होगा. सिंपल. क्लियर है? Exception on GTA or CM by GTA is provided nothing contained in this entry shall apply to services provided by goods transport agency. तो GTA या तो फॉरवर्ड चार्ज या तो रिवर्स चार्ज, लेकिन ये इन चीजों के ऊपर रिवर्स चार्ज पे GTA पर आरसीएम भी नहीं लेगा, फॉरवर्ड चार्ज भी नहीं लेगा व्हेन इट इज सप्लाइड टू अ डिपार्टमेंट और एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और एनी गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज। अगर आप इनको सप्लाई करते हो तो जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा। ठीक है, सो दिस इज थिंग। तो इन नटशेल अगर आपको अलग तरह से बताना चाहिए तो इफ इट्स अ रजिस्टर्ड जीटीए एक्सरसाइज द ऑप्शन, देन इट विल पे इधर अंडर 12% और 5%। अगर 12% तो फॉरवर्ड चार्ज, अगर 5% भी फॉरवर्ड चार्ज हो सकता है। ठीक है। अगर जीटीए एक्सरसाइज नहीं करता है कि मैं पे करूंगा, तो फिर रिसिपिएंट हमेशा 5% ही पे करेगा। तो जीटीए अगर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज पे करता है तो फिर 5 और 12 हो सकता है, लेकिन रिसिपेंट जब पे करता है तो फिर हमेशा 5 ही रहेगा। तो 7 कैटेगरी ऑफ स्पेशल पीपल जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ वो ये है। फैक्ट्री रजिस्टर्ड अंडर फैक्ट्रीज एक्ट, सोसाइटी रजिस्टर्ड अंडर सोसाइटीज एक्ट, कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी, एनी पर्सन हु इज रजिस्टर्ड अंडर जीएसटी, बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, पार्टनरशिप फर्म या फिर कैजुअल टैक्सेबल पर्सन। सो ये 7 कैटेगरी लोग हैं जिन्हें हम नोटिफाइड पर्सन कहते हैं जीटीए के डेफिनेशन में। अगर ये 7 लोग कुछ परचेज करते हैं तो फिर वो आरसीएम 5% पे पे करेंगे, और जीटीए क्लेम नहीं करेगा, लेकिन मैं जो 5% पे करूंगा मैं उसका क्लेम ले सकता हूँ। ओके। और अगर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज पे पे करना चाहता है ये जीटीए, तो फॉरवर्ड चार्ज पे 12% पे करेगा। क्लियर विद दिस? Forward charge 5% GST. Can company avail ITC? Yes. A company who is paying under reverse charge, forward charge. Okay. If it is forward charge, then it is a GTA. Unikrishnan, GTA is paying under forward charge. Correct. If it is collecting under forward charge, you are a receiver. You can claim ITC. No problem. The restriction is only for a GTA. That GTA cannot claim the credit under 5%. Okay. Are we good to go now? GTA clarified. Next is on renting of motor vehicles. Means in case pay 5%, not claim ITC. Correct. Who? The GTA. अब GTA है आपका, आप एक बिजनेसमैन हो रश्मि, बिजनेस आप कर रहे हो और आप ट्रेडिंग कर रहे हो। आपको आपके सप्लायर ने कहा कि मैं गुड्स सेंड कर रहा हूं, आप एक जीटीए को रख लो और आप ही पे करो। तो आप क्या कर रहे हो रश्मि, आप एक जीटीए को हायर कर रहे हो, जीटीए को बोल रहे हो सप्लायर से माल मुझे लेके आना है। ठीक है, आप लेके आ गए। Now, once you have got the goods, you have to pay to this GTA person. Now, GTA person says कि मैं 5% चार्ज करूंगा। ठीक है, ठीक है भैया आप कर लो, आप नहीं करोगे तो मेरे को रिवर्स चार्ज करना पड़ेगा, आप चार्ज कर लो, तो वो चार्ज करेगा। अगर वो 5% चार्ज कर रहा है तो वो क्रेडिट क्लेम नहीं कर सकता है। लेकिन वो जीटीए के ऊपर वो 5% जो चार्ज कर रहा है वो क्लेम नहीं कर सकता है, उसका इनपुट क्रेडिट, उसके जो परचेजेस है उसके एक्सपेंसेस है वो क्लेम नहीं कर सकता है। लेकिन आप तो क्लेम कर सकते हो। ठीक है, यू कैन क्लेम क्रेडिट। नाउ, रेंटिंग ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी। अगर आप कुछ, सॉरी, ऑन मोटर व्हीकल, रेंटिंग ऑफ मोटर व्हीकल। सिमिलरली जो वहां पे है यहाँ पे भी ऐसा ही है, लेकिन थोड़ा डिफरेंट है यहाँ पे। इफ यू आर गेटिंग एनी रोड रेंटिंग ऑफ इन द बिजनेस ऑफ रेंटिंग ऑफ मोटर व्हीकल इंक्लूडिंग कॉस्ट ऑफ फ्यूल। मतलब क्या है, दो चीजें हो जाती है यहाँ पे। जस्ट आप रेंट कर रहे हो तो फिर रिवर्स चार्ज नहीं है, नॉर्मल चार्ज है। लेकिन आप रेंटिंग कर रहे हो मोटर व्हीकल विथ कॉस्ट ऑफ फ्यूल, तो फिर रिवर्स चार्ज बनता है। व्हेन इट इज सर्विस इज प्रोवाइडेड बाय अ बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, मतलब एक कंपनी है जो रेंटिंग ऑफ व्हीकल कर रही है और कॉस्ट ऑफ फ्यूल भी साथ में चार्ज कर रही है, देन इट इज ऑलवेज अंडर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज। तो यहाँ पे देखिए, फॉरवर्ड चार्ज, फॉरवर्ड चार्ज। इफ इट इज अवेलिंग फुल आईटीसी और लिमिटेड आईटीसी, फुल फॉरवर्ड चार्ज ही है। अगर वो कॉर्पोरेट है, अगर बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट है, तो फिर वो हमेशा फॉरवर्ड चार्ज ही करेगी। लेकिन अगर सर्विस प्रोवाइडर नॉन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट है, ठीक है, और सर्विस किसको प्रोवाइड कर रही है, बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट को, ओके, सर्विस प्रोवाइडेड बाय अ पर्सन अदर देन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, सर्विस इज सप्लाइड टू पर्सन अदर देन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट। सो बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट टू नॉन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, नॉन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट टू नॉन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, तो हमेशा फॉरवर्ड चार्ज ही है। लेकिन अगर प्रोवाइडर नॉन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट है, रिसीवर है बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, तो फिर दो ऑप्शन है कि इफ योर सप्लायर इज अवेलिंग फुल आईटीसी तो फिर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज, इफ सप्लायर इज अवेलिंग लिमिटेड आईटीसी देन अंडर रिवर्स चार्ज। तो सिर्फ एक कैटेगरी में रिवर्स चार्ज आएगा, व्हेन इट इज अ सप्लायर हु इज अ नॉन बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट एंड अ रिसीवर इज अ बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट, और वो सप्लायर बोल रहा है कि मैं फुल आईटीसी क्लेम नहीं करूंगा, तब मैं 5% पे करूंगा। जो नॉर्मल चार्ज है रश्मि, उसको फॉरवर्ड चार्ज कहते हैं। दैट इज व्हेन सप्लायर इज पेइंग, दैट इज कॉल्ड फॉरवर्ड चार्ज। ठीक है, गॉट इट रश्मि। ओके, there's a difference between renting of motor vehicle and transportation of passengers. There may arise a doubt whether RCM is applicable on service of renting of motor vehicle designed to carry passenger or service of transportation of passengers. This is clarified that there is a distinction between these two services. Okay, the two services fall under two different headings. Service of renting of motor vehicle designed to carry passengers covers renting of motor vehicles for transportation of passengers for a limited time. ठीक है, आपको कंफ्यूजन हो सकता है कि रेंटिंग ऑफ मोटर व्हीकल डिजाइन टू कैरी पैसेंजर्स क्या है और सर्विस ऑफ ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ पैसेंजर्स क्या है, वेयर द रेंडर defines how and when the vehicle will be operated, then it is a renting of motor vehicles. Otherwise, it is transportation of passengers. If an individual provides services to a company or with register with GST, नहीं समझा नहीं रश्मि, what is your query? I think you can unmute yourself and ask.
हेलो, गुड
Yes,
इवनिंग
good evening.
सर। आई हैव क्वेश्चन कि मतलब जो आप जो कंपनी है और ये एक इंडिविजुअल है और जो रजिस्टर है और वो सर्विस प्रोवाइड करता है कंपनी को,
क्या
जैसे
सर्विस, क्या सर्विस?
वो जो मैं सर्विस आरसीएम की बात कर रही हूँ सर। मैं ना सीए फर्म में काम कर रही हूँ, तो उसमें एक टेम्पो सर्विस सर्विस का क्लाइंट है, तो उनका रिवर्स चार्ज का रिटर्न फाइल होता है। मुझे समझ में नहीं आता है यही कि अगर रिटर्न वो फाइल नहीं करेंगे इधर से, वो सर्विस प्रोवाइड करते हैं कंपनी को, टेम्पो सर्विस, तो फिर आरसी रिसिपिएंट वो टैक्स पे करता है ना,
करेक्ट,
जो कंपनी है वो टैक्स पे करता है, तो फिर हम इधर से क्यों रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं, दिखाते रिवर्स चार्ज।
करेक्ट। तो जो सप्लायर है वो अगर रिटर्न फाइल करेगा तो फिर उसके पूरे सप्लाईज रिकॉर्ड होंगे और उसको मेंशन करना है कि इसके ऊपर रिवर्स चार्ज रिसीवर को पे करना है। वरना क्या होगा, रिसीवर को पता भी नहीं चलेगा कि उसको रिवर्स चार्ज पे करना है, और सप्लायर कितना टर्नओवर करना है ये भी दिखाएगा नहीं। तो उसका टर्नओवर के ऊपर उसको टैक्स तो पे नहीं करना है, लेकिन उसको डिस्क्लोज करना है रिटर्न्स में कि मेरे इतने सारे सप्लाईज है।
इट मीन्स जो सर्विस प्रोवाइडर या एनीबॉडी है जो अगर इधर से रिवर्स चार्ज नहीं शो करेगा रिटर्न फाइल में, तो इसका मतलब कि वो रिसिपिएंट आईटीसी क्लेम नहीं कर सकता है और रिवर्स चार्ज पे नहीं कर सकता है।
नहीं नहीं, वो उसका मतलब ये नहीं हुआ, क्योंकि अगर सप्लायर दिखाता नहीं है तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं होगा कि रिसिपेंट पे नहीं करेगा। रिसिपेंट के पास तो इनवॉइस है और कंसाइनमेंट नोट है, उस बेसिस
यस।
पे वो पे कर सकता है। लेकिन सप्लायर को, अगर मैं एग्जेम्प्ट सप्लाई भी कुछ करता हूं तो मुझे डिस्क्लोजर ठीक से करना चाहिए। करेक्ट। तो इस हिसाब से डिस्क्लोजर के हिसाब से सप्लायर को ठीक से डिस्क्लोज करना चाहिए, ये वजह से उसको फाइल कर रहे हैं रिटर्न्स।
ओके, थैंक यू सर।
Any other question in terms of this reverse charge? Others are all clarification, but majorly. GTA definition includes motor vehicle used for carrying goods within the plant? No, that doesn't include, because goods transport agency is defined and under the Motor Vehicles Act. So based on that, motor vehicles which are used for carrying inside the plants doesn't fit under that. Whether ITC can be claimed to renting of motor vehicle, we will have to see the rate of renting of motor vehicles. Who does renting of motor vehicles? If I'm clear that the rate notification says that the rate will be 20% and ITC cannot be claimed. So they may not be able to claim the ITC.
सर आई हैव ऑन डाउट, जो फिक्स एसेट है, जैसे कि हमारे वो ग्रोसरी स्टोर हुआ है जो जिन लोग का रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं, तो वो लोग अगर फ्रीज वगैरह लेते हैं तो हम उसका ना आईटीसी क्लेम कर लेते हैं। तो मेरे को समझ में नहीं आता है कि कैसे आईटीसी क्लेम कर लेते हैं, क्योंकि वो तो हम यूज करने के लिए मतलब उसको परचेज
बिजनेस
करते
के
हैं।
लिए यूज करते हैं ना।
यस, जैसे कोल्ड ड्रिंक
तो
वगैरह, तो फिर हम कैसे, जैसे बोलते हैं कि हम क्लेम कर लेंगे, इनवॉइस आएगी, इसका मतलब जो वो सेलर है वो इनवॉइस पोर्टल पे चढ़ाएगा तभी तो क्लेम कर सकते हैं ना।
करेक्ट। सो अगर आप एक एक केक लेंगे, सपोज ग्रोसरी स्टोर है, वो एक रेफ्रिजरेटर खरीदता है।
यस।
सो ही बॉट द रेफ्रिजरेटर फ्रॉम यू, आपने उसको रेफ्रिजरेटर सेल किया। तो अगर आप उसको रेफ्रिजरेटर सेल करोगे तो आप GSTR1 में उसका GST नंबर दिखा के GSTR1 तो अपलोड करोगे।
सर एक मिनट, यही मुझे सर, हम सेल करने के लिए थोड़ी खरीदते हैं, हम तो यूज करने के लिए ना खरीदते हैं उसका।
नहीं नहीं, हम एक एक स्टेप जाएंगे। आप फर्स्ट रेफ्रिजरेटर सेल कर रहे हो। आप अगर, मैं हूँ ग्रोसरी शॉप वाला, आपसे मैं रेफ्रिजरेटर खरीद रहा हूँ।
यस यस यस।
तो इफ यू आर अ रेफ्रिजरेटर सेलर, आप मुझे जीएसटी चार्ज करोगे या नहीं करोगे?
यस, चार्ज करूंगी।
You will charge me. So for you, it is a normal goods. You will charge me GST, correct?
यस यस।
तो मैंने आपको जीएसटी पे कर दिया. Now come to me. You have sold refrigerator to me. I am not using it for my household. I am
यस
using it for my business.
यस।
Input tax credit, when we come, you will see that ITC is availed on all the goods and services which is used for business, including capital goods. ठीक है? So capital goods, you are not buying to sell it, but you are buying to use it. तो आप
बिजनेस।
यूज भी कर रहे हो बिजनेस के लिए, तो आप उसका क्रेडिट ले सकते हो. नाउ आपका क्वेश्चन ये हो सकता है कि जब मैं कुछ ट्रेडेड गुड्स लेता हूं, तब 1 महीने के लिए 2 महीने के लिए रखूंगा, फिर सेल कर दूंगा, तो इसके ऊपर गवर्नमेंट को जीएसटी आ रहा है.
यस
लेकिन रेफ्रिजरेटर के ऊपर जीएसटी कहाँ जा रहा है?
यस।
So GST on capital goods, when you are buying, government is trusting you that you will use it for a long duration of period. So I'm giving you the credit. Now, what is this long duration? This is कि at least 5 साल use कर लो. If you are using this capital goods, any capital goods, it can be a refrigerator, it can be a computer, it can be a laptop, it can be a machinery. Any capital goods, if you are using for 5 years, then you have used for the effective life of GST. So for all capital goods, the GST is saying that use it for 5 years. That much credit is fine with you. If you sell it in between, कि 1 साल रेफ्रिजरेटर लिया और 2 साल में आपने बेच दिया, जैसे मैंने आपसे खरीदा था, उसके ऊपर आई हैव टेकन अ क्रेडिट ऑफ 50,000 रुपीज. जो भी वैल्यू था उसके ऊपर यू हैव चार्ज 50,000 जीएसटी. आई हैव क्लेम द क्रेडिट ऑफ 50,000 रुपीज टुडे. नाउ आफ्टर 2 years, आई वांटेड टू चेंज द रेफ्रिजरेटर, सो आई हैव सोल्ड इट. लेकिन
यस
गवर्नमेंट ने फर्स्ट क्या कहा कि मैं आपके ऊपर भरोसा करके, आप 5 साल यूज करोगे, ये भरोसे पे मैंने आपको पूरा क्रेडिट दे दिया है. बट नाउ यू हैव सोल्ड इट विद इन 2 years, तो फिर क्रेडिट रिटर्न करो. So you will have to
सर।
return the credit.
तो सर ये कैसे, मतलब ये पता चलता है कि हम ये कमर्शियल, कोई लोग पर्सनल भी यूज लेते हैं उसको आईटीसी में क्लेम मतलब करा करते
इसीलिए
हैं ऐसे।
तो हम प्रोफेशनल्स है, जो हम सही गाइड करेंगे क्लाइंट्स को कि ये आपका अगर पर्सनल यूज के लिए है, तो आप जीएसटी क्रेडिट नहीं क्लेम कर सकते हो. जो दुनिया पूरी गलत करती है, हम उनके साथ रहेंगे तो हम प्रोफेशनल्स कहाँ बनेंगे? तो वी हैव टू गिव करेक्ट गाइडेंस टू द businessman, to the registered person, saying that if you are using anything for the personal use, you cannot claim it. If you are using for your business use, you can claim it. तो अभी
आई।
अब बिजनेस की बात आ जाए, वहां पे बात कंप्लीट नहीं हुई. सो गवर्नमेंट के नॉट क्लेम फुल क्रेडिट. So you as a trader, you will tell, I have used it for 2 years. You said me I should use it for 5 years. मैंने 5 साल यूज नहीं किया, ठीक है, मेरी गलती है, लेकिन मैंने 2 साल के तो यूज किया है, तो अब मुझसे पूरा 50,000 मत लो. So
यस
government has said that when you sell any capital goods on which you have claimed the credit, proportionate to the number of years you can claim the credit. 50,000 रुपए 5 साल का था, तो आपने 2 साल के लिए यूज कर ही दिया है. सो हाउ मच क्रेडिट यू आर राइटली एलिजिबल फॉर?
3 ईयर।
50,000. 2 years you are eligible, correct?
30,000।
30,000 आपको पे करना. सो व्हेन यू सेल दिस कैपिटल गुड्स, अगर आपका जीएसटी 40,000 है और ये कैलकुलेशन के हिसाब से 30,000 आ रहा है, विच एवर इज हायर, यू हैव टू कंपेयर एंड पे दैट मच ऑफ जीएसटी. समझे आप? सो
तो
व्हेन
सर
दिस
इसके लिए तो
रेफ्रिजरेटर,
फिर हमें इनवॉइस बनाना पड़ेगा, जैसे वो पे कर जिसको सेल करेंगे फिर कहाँ कैसे।
करेक्ट, यू विल हैव टू रेज द इनवॉइस. आपको तो रेज करना है, जितना आपने अग्री किया है उतना तो आप रेज करोगे. मैंने रेफ्रिजरेटर 2 साल के लिए यूज किया, अब मैं बेच दूंगा उसको 20,000 रुपए पे, ठीक है? लेकिन हमारे कैलकुलेशन से रिवर्सल कितना आ रहा था, 30,000 रुपीज, करेक्ट. So you will sell for 20,000, but the GST which you will pay is 30,000, not the tax on that 20,000 into 18%. Because this calculation says whichever is higher, that will determine the GST payable. इसका फॉर्मूला भी है विच इज देयर अंडर रूल 43, बट वो फाइनल में है. आप फाइनल का क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया और मैं भी फाइनल का आंसर दे चुका हूँ, बट यू शुड अंडरस्टैंड दिस.
थैंक यू सर, क्योंकि मैं इसके रिलेटेड वर्क करती हूँ इसलिए डाउट हुआ सर.
प्रैक्टिकली व्हेन यू अप्लाई आपको फिर से अच्छी तरह से याद हो जाए. थैंक यू. Next question is by Sriram. Sir, capital goods topic, land is exempted on GST. Capital goods topic, yes, land is exempted on GST. So what is your question? Deepti's question is, does ICAI conduct live classes for intermediate January 2025? Yes, why not? So this is the classes for September. Start attending these classes. By the time you gauge for it, you can have a revision for the January 2025 classes as well.
Sir,
yes.
Good evening.
Good
सर
evening.
मुझे ये जानना था कि जब आपने कहा कि कैपिटल गुड्स पे हमने आईटीसी क्लेम कर लिया एंड देन उसके बाद अगर गुड्स डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाए, जैसे 2 साल बाद गुड्स डिस्ट्रॉय हुई, तो भी हमें आईटीसी को रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा.
करेक्ट. आईटीसी रिवर्सल, आईटीसी सेक्शन 16 आप एक बार पढ़िए, सेक्शन 17 एक बार ग्लांस कीजिए. 17 बोलता है आपका जो आईटीसी क्रेडिट है, हम इसीलिए आईटीसी, गवर्नमेंट बोलती है, मैं नहीं, गवर्नमेंट बोल रहा है कि आपको आईटीसी ये भरोसे पे दे रहे हैं कि आप उसको कुछ ना कुछ करके मेरे को जीएसटी लेके आएंगे. कैपिटल गुड्स भी है, वो आप इनडायरेक्टली बिजनेस में यूज कर रहे हो और उससे जीएसटी कलेक्ट कर रहे हो, इसीलिए मैं आपको दे रहा हूं. अगर वो गुड्स डिस्ट्रॉय हो गए तो फिर आप तो मुझे, जो मैंने आपके ऊपर भरोसा किया था कि आप मुझे आउटपुट पे लाके दोगे सेल्स जीएसटी, वो आपने नहीं दिया है, तब भी आपको रिवर्स करना है. चूहा खा गया फिर भी आपको जीएसटी रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा. एनी गुड्स लॉस्ट, स्टोलन, डिस्ट्रॉयड, आपको जीएसटी आईटीसी जो दिया था उसको रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा. एक point on remuneration to director is there. We'll take this and then we'll take your questions. Now, director का जो remuneration pay करते हैं, there are 2 types of remuneration to the director. One, you're paying as an employee. Director can become an employee if he's a whole-time director, or he's also called as a managing director. If he's there completely for the business, then he can take salary. Companies Act also allows this. So if he's taking any kind of salary, then it is covered under Schedule 3. So services by an employee to employer is exempt. No GST either under forward charge. अब forward charge में नहीं है तो reverse charge पे भी नहीं रहेगा. But we had seen one category की services provided by a director to a company, reverse charge is applicable. What are that services? When the director is providing in the nature of a non-employee. If he's an independent director or any other directors who are not employees, then they're liable to GST under RCM. If it is ascertained that director is an employee, then activities performed in the course of employment not liable to GST. अब decide कैसे करोगे इस बात को? तो there are other laws जिसका help ले सकते हो आप. Any payment to the director जिसके ऊपर आप TDS as a 192 section under income tax is when you are having a employment relationship, तब आपको TDS deduct करना पड़ता है. So if you are deducting TDS under 192, then you will have to pay no GST. Because it's a employer-employee relationship. But if you are deducting TDS under 194J as a professional fees, then you are liable to pay GST under RCM. Yeah, these are common points. This is all the crux of reverse charge mechanism. Okay. Now another reverse charge is on this e-commerce. So e-commerce में क्या होता है? E-commerce person will not hold any goods. It is all held by the supplier. E-commerce will only display the goods. they जो Amazon है, ये Flipkart है, good example for e-commerce. They don't hold the goods. They only do the marketing of those goods, and customer will order it. The delivery happens from the supplier to the customer. So in this case, control किसके पास है? पूरा e-commerce पे. So that's why e-commerce के ऊपर एक liability ध्यान दिया कि आपको GST पे करना पड़ेगा on specified category of e-commerce services. There are various e-commerce services, जैसे आप रेडियो टैक्सी, मोटर कैब, ओला, उबर चलाते हो, यूज करते हो, तब Ola, Uber will pay taxes of GST on behalf of the cab fellow. Okay. In case of providing accommodation in hotels and inns, makemytrip.com, जहां पे आप होटल बुक करते हो, तब एनी पर्सन एक्सेप्ट हु इज रजिस्टर्ड, जो रजिस्टर्ड है वो खुद पे करेगा, जो अनरजिस्टर्ड है वो मेक माई ट्रिप उनके बिहाफ पे करेगी. देन सर्विसेज ऑफ हाउसकीपिंग, अर्बन क्लैप, कारपेंटरिंग पर प्लम्बिंग सर्विसेज जो आप लेते हो, तो कारपेंटर तो है, उसको जीएसटी पे करो बोलोगे तो जिंदगी में वो पे नहीं करेगा. तो फिर आ गया अर्बन क्लैप, आप हो बीच में तो आप पे कीजिए, तो अर्बन क्लैप पे करेगा कारपेंटर के बिहाफ. रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज, रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज एक्सेप्ट जब रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज, ऑल रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज के ऊपर जब आप स्विगी जोमेटो से मंगवाते हो, तब स्विगी जोमेटो रेस्टोरेंट की सर्विस पे करेगा. लेकिन आप जब वो होटल में जाके खाना खाते हो, तब होटल चार्ज डायरेक्टली करेगा. ठीक है. So these are the specified services on which e-commerce will pay the GST on behalf of these people. Any more doubts on reverse charge? Yeah, Unikrishnan, on that capital goods, your question is valid. How do we disclose? So the point is, in GSTR1, you will mention the tax and the value. You may have to gross it up, and there will be a difference which will be explained in your GSTR9, because the value can undergo change in that case. Good. If it is all clear, that is very nice. So this is a circular. We can go through it. It's just self-explanatory. We were talking under 9.4. When 9.4, what happens is there is affordable housing and non-affordable housing. If you're a real estate developer, you have to pay 1% and 5%. From 18%, they came down to such a small rate. So if you are paying such a small rate, then you have to not claim the credit. So what is the government saying? That we'll give you a small rate for your construction services. Don't claim the credit. ठीक है, I will not claim the credit. तो फिर क्या होगा? I will start purchasing from people who are not registered under GST, so that my GST burden will reduce. So I will purchase from unregistered people more. But the government doesn't want to lose revenue there also. They've said that ITC is not available, but the condition is 80% of your input should be from registered person. If you don't purchase 80%, 20% you purchase from unregistered, समझ सकते हैं. But if you purchase more than 20% from unregistered person to the extent of shortfall, which is 80% you have bought, fine. If you have bought only 70%, then to the extent of difference of 10%, you have to pay tax under reverse charge. That is what is 9.4. And if you have purchased that from unregistered person cement, तो फिर cement के ऊपर 28% pay करना पड़ेगा. This is the tax under 9.4. ठीक है. So 9.3 normal reverse charge, 9.4 this is the reverse charge. Okay. If you don't have any doubts, or you want to think of the doubts, think of it. We'll take a break of 5 minutes and catch up at 7:45. Thank you. So there are some questions which have popped up in case of Shriram. One firm purchased AC from e-commerce operator, AC received from the supplier, but the GST will come from two different persons. Which GST taken as input, e-commerce operator or supply, which is what is ineligible. So you can claim only one credit. E-commerce also is charged, which generally shouldn't, because e-commerce company is not supplier. The purchase seller, the vendor who is charged, that is the correct credit which you can claim. Another question is, in case of real estate builders charging 5% GST on final consumer, once under RCM, it applicable, how they are collecting it from customer? It is not under RCM, no. Real estate builders charge 5%. They are not under RCM, it is under forward charge. If they purchase, if their purchases, the real estate's purchases are below 80% from registered persons, then they have to pay under reverse charge. Okay, so real estate builders will collect. No, if they don't collect from a customers, from them, how will they run their business? They will collect from the customers at 5%. And if their inputs or input services procured are less, then they will pay under reverse charge at 18%. This is under forward charge itself. Clear, Unikrishnan? So before we get into the topic of composition levy, do you have any doubts till now? Okay, so I assume your silence means either you have not understood or you have understood everything. What should I consider that as? Okay, so let's take that as a positive note that everything is clear. Let's move forward to a charge topic. Within the charge itself, there is composition scheme. So the government saw the requirement of the huge number of traders and manufacturers and service providers and so many unorganized people, and they wanted to get them into the GST, but they didn't want to burden them with lot of compliance, lot of high rate of tax and loss of customer. So they said, you are small traders and small dealers, we will give you a fresh new scheme, which was also there under the old law, but they gave a new scheme here, called it as composition scheme. And it said that if you are a small trader, manufacturer, or a service provider, we will give you a special rate, which will be, of course, special, matlab extra rate nahi, kam rate rahega. We'll give you a special rate for a lower GST rate. आप इतना GST pay कर दो, अब credit मत मांगना आप हमसे. Don't take the credit, pay the small GST rate. Returns भी हम छोटा कर देंगे आपका. You don't have to file monthly returns, file one annual return, pay on quarterly things and things like that. Then we will not trouble you. So this is called as a composition scheme. Then there were some small fellows who came that, what, you're not giving us credit? If you're not giving us credit, we will not opt for this scheme. We boycott your scheme. Government said, okay, don't want the scheme, don't take the scheme. Go for regular scheme, claim the credit, pay the taxes. You are small but big, claim the credit and pay all the taxes. You can go with the normal scheme. So they said composition is not a compulsory scheme. It is a voluntary scheme. If you want, take it. We are giving it. If you want, take it. जबरदस्ती आपके मुंह में तो नहीं डाल सकते. So it's a optional scheme. ठीक है? The composition scheme is there for goods separately. Composition scheme for services is there separately. 10.1 and 10.2 is for goods. What does it say? If you are a manufacturer, okay, then you pay GST. आपका 18% भी रहेगा, normal पे 28% भी रहेगा, लेकिन आप क्या पे करो? सिर्फ 1%. Not 1 CST, 1 SGST. Totally 1%, 0.5% CGST, 0.5% SGST, 1%. 1% of the turnover in the state. Who, if you are a manufacturer? If you are a trader, still 1%, but what? There is a difference here. 1% of the turnover of taxable supplies of goods and services in the state. 1% of the turnover of the taxable supplies, and manufacturer 1% of the turnover. What is the difference? There is a lot of difference. Manufacturer will pay 1% of the turnover, total turnover. Taxable hai, non-taxable hai, on everything he will pay 1%. But trader will pay 1% of the turnover of taxable supplies of goods and services only. If it is not taxable, he will not pay. So that's a huge difference. Trader will pay 1%, manufacturer will pay 1%, but trader will pay less taxes, manufacturer will pay more taxes. We'll see that when we come to the MCQ with the example, if trader will pay less and manufacturer will pay more, because manufacturer is 1% of the total turnover. But trader के लिए छोटा हो गया, trader is only on the 1% of the turnover of taxable supplies of goods. ठीक है? And restaurant services. रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज जब हम खाना खाते हैं, दे आर सर्विसेज बट अंडर कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ गुड्स के अंडर ही ला दिया उनको बेनिफिट, बिकॉज दे हैड टू गिव देम दैट बेनिफिट कि आपको सिर्फ 5% चार्ज करें. ओके, सो रेस्टोरेंट सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स 5%, लेकिन अब आप 5 स्टार होटल में जाओगे तब आप 5% चार्ज नहीं कर पाओगे, बिकॉज उनके लिए रेट अलग है. फॉर नॉर्मल रेस्टोरेंट सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स इट इज 5%. ठीक है. नाउ कुछ सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स भी आ गए, वो बोल रहे नहीं, अब कंपोजिशन सबको दे रहे हो तो फिर हमको भी मिलना चाहिए. ठीक है भैया, आपको भी मिलेगा, लेकिन आपको 6% पे करना पड़ेगा. ओके, 6% मिल जाएगा. 3% CGST, 3% SGST, 6% का बेनिफिट आपको मिल जाएगा. सो नॉर्मल सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स, 6% पे आ जाओ, इनपुट मत क्लेम करो और डायरेक्ट 6% GST पे कर दो. लेकिन रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज वो पहले से था, वो उसी में 5% में कंटिन्यू. ठीक है. नाउ व्हाट आर द कंडीशंस फॉर कंपोजिशन स्कीम? फर्स्टली, इट इज अ वॉलंटरी स्कीम एंड ऑप्शनल. कोई जबरदस्ती नहीं है. आपको क्रेडिट चाहिए, आपको रेगुलर स्कीम में लेना है तो आप रेगुलर स्कीम में रह जाइए, आपको कंपोजिशन में आने की जरूरत नहीं है. बेनिफिट्स: क्वार्टरली पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्सेस एट स्पेसिफाइड रेट्स विदाउट क्लेमिंग ITC. आपको पेमेंट क्वार्टरली करना है. ओके, और आपको एक एनुअल रिटर्न फाइल करना है. जो रेगुलरली मंथली रिटर्न्स फाइल करते हैं, 12 रिटर्न्स फाइल करते हैं. जो क्वार्टरली रिटर्न्स फाइल करने वाले हैं वो क्वार्टरली एक रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं, मतलब साल के 4 रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं. लेकिन कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम साल का एक रिटर्न, पेमेंट भी क्वार्टरली. 4 रिटर्न और एक 5वां एनुअल रिटर्न, सिर्फ 5 बार आपको GST का मुंह देखना है. टर्नओवर लिमिट क्या है? जो एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर आपको कॉम्पोजिशन में टिकने देगा, द एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर कैलकुलेटेड ऑन ऑल इंडिया बेसिस इज अप टू 1.5 crores इन द प्रीसीडिंग फाइनेंशियल ईयर. अगर आपका प्रीवियस टर्नओवर, पिछले साल का टर्नओवर 1.5 करोड़ के नीचे है, तब आप इस साल कॉम्पोजिशन के अंदर घुस सकते हो. और इन केस ऑफ स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट्स, 8 स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट्स है, उनको सिर्फ आधा. उनका अगर 75 लाख तक आपका टर्नओवर है पिछले साल, तब आप कॉम्पोजिशन में घुस सकते हो. ठीक है. कौन है वो स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट्स? TNMM, SUMA. ये मैंने शॉर्ट वर्ड लिखा है. TNMM का मतलब है त्रिपुरा, नागालैंड, मिजोरम, मणिपुर. त्रिपुरा, नागालैंड, मिजोरम और मणिपुर. और SUMA का मतलब है सिक्किम, उत्तराखंड, मेघालय और अरुणाचल प्रदेश. अगर इन 8 स्टेट में आपका कुछ बिजनेस है, तब आपका कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम लेकर लिमिट है 75 लाख. बाकी सभी स्टेट्स, यूनियन टेरिटरीज के लिए 1.5 करोड़. और प्रेजेंट ईयर भी आपका इतना होना चाहिए. अगर इस ईयर क्रॉस कर देते हो, तब आपको कॉम्पोजिशन से नॉर्मल में ट्रांजिशन होना ही पड़ेगा. मीन्स पे क्वार्टरली बट रिटर्न ओनली 1 टाइम एनुअल. करेक्ट. बस सिंपल. एंड फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन, कॉम्पोजिशन के लिए टर्नओवर लिमिट है सिर्फ 50 लाख. गुड्स के लिए ज्यादा है, सर्विसेज के लिए कम है। ठीक है, लेकिन ये जो 1.5 करोड़ और 75 लाख बोल रहे हो वो रेस्टोरेंट सर्विस के लिए भी लागू होगा। ठीक है, तो ये जो कैटेगरी के लोग हैं इनको है 1.5 करोड़ लिमिट, सर्विसेज के लिए 50 लाख, और स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट सर्विसेज के लिए नहीं, वहां पे 50 लाख सबके लिए है। क्लियर? नाउ वी हैड सेड एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर एंड टैक्सेबल टर्नओवर फर्स्ट। जब ये लिमिट देख लेते कि आपको 1.5 करोड़ इन द प्रीसीडिंग फाइनेंशियल ईयर है, ये है एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर। तो ये एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर क्या है? एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर कंप्यूटेड ऑल इंडिया बेसिस, ऑल इंडिया बेसिस पे आपका टर्नओवर देखना पड़ेगा कि आपका टैक्सेबल सप्लाईज क्या है, एग्जाम सप्लाईज क्या है, एक्सपोर्ट क्या है, इंटरस्टेट सप्लाई क्या है, इन सब का टोटल इज एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर। लेकिन इसमें क्या एक्सक्लूड करना है? इनवर्ड सप्लाईज, जिसके ऊपर आप आरसीएम तो पे करोगे लेकिन वो टर्नओवर नहीं है, so that's not a turnover, don't include that. Then taxes including cess paid, आप taxes भी include मत कीजिए, सिर्फ सर सिर्फ आपका प्लेन टर्नओवर आपको कंसिडर करना है, रिवर्स चार्ज नहीं ऐड करना है और सेस और टैक्सेस ऐड नहीं करना है। ठीक है, नाउ किसके ऊपर आपको टैक्स पे करना है? टर्नओवर इन अ स्टेट और यूनियन टेरिटरी कंप्यूटेड ऑन ऑल इंडिया बेसिस, आपको टैक्सेबल सप्लाई ऐड करना है, एग्जाम सप्लाई ऐड करना है, एक्सपोर्ट और इंटरस्टेट तो ऐड नहीं करना ही है, सिर्फ टैक्सेबल और एग्जाम ऐड करना है। एग्जाम भी सप्लाई कर रहे हो तब भी आपको पे करना पड़ेगा 1%, किसको? मैन्युफैक्चरर को। लेकिन ट्रेडर के केस में हमने क्या बताया था? ट्रेडर के केस में सिर्फ टैक्सेबल सप्लाईज इन अ स्टेट है, तो मतलब अगर वो एग्जाम सप्लाई कर रहा है तो उसके ऊपर जीएसटी पे नहीं करेगा, लेकिन मैन्युफैक्चरर उसके ऊपर भी पे करेगा बिकॉज इट्स अ कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम एंड इट सेज 1% ऑफ द टोटल टर्नओवर, इसीलिए मैन्युफैक्चरर जैसे हमने बताया था वो ज्यादा पे करेगा। अगर इसमें भी सेम इनवर्ट सप्लाईज के ऊपर इंक्लूड नहीं होगा और सेस वगैरह के ऊपर आप ऐड नहीं करोगे। तो एक और बार क्या क्या होगा एक composite player को? A person making any supply of goods or services who are not, which are not leviable to tax, मतलब the registered person who is not eligible for composition। कौन कौन composition scheme के अंदर नहीं घुस सकता है? If you are making only exempt supplies, या फिर सिर्फ आप ऐसे गुड्स बेच रहे हो जिसके ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगता है, मतलब पूरा एग्जेम्पशन है, तो फिर आप कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम में नहीं आ सकते हो। ठीक है, देन पर्सन मेकिंग एनी इंटरस्टेट आउटवर्ड सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स और सर्विसेज, अगर आप एक भी चीज इंटरस्टेट सप्लाई कर रहे हो तो फिर आप जीएसटी के कॉम्पोजिशन में नहीं आ सकते हो, आपको फिर रेगुलर स्कीम जाना पड़ेगा। ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट सेइंग आप इंटरस्टेट मत कीजिए, इंटरस्टेट करो, अगर इंटरस्टेट करना है तो फिर कॉम्पोजिट स्कीम के अंदर मत आइए। देन यू कैन नॉट सप्लाई गुड्स और सर्विसेज थ्रू एन ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर हु इज रिक्वायर्ड टू कलेक्ट टीसीएस। ओके, इफ यू आर रश्मि, आपका क्वेश्चन समझ में नहीं आया। Was supplying goods or services through an e-commerce operator who is required to collect TCS, तो फिर आप इसके अंदर नहीं आ सकते हो। Then manufacturers of ice cream, पान मसाला, tobacco, aerated water, fly ash bricks, ये सब अमेंडमेंट हुआ है। फ्लाई एश ब्रिक्स, ब्रिक्स ऑफ फॉसिल मिल्स, बिल्डिंग ब्रिक्स, अर्थन और रूफिंग टाइल्स, अगर ये सब आप मैन्युफैक्चर कर रहे हो तब भी आप कॉम्पोजिशन में नहीं आ सकते। और कैजुअल टैक्सेबल पर्सन और नॉन रेसिडेंट टैक्सेबल पर्सन दे आल्सो कैन नॉट गेट। ये कौन है हम बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे, बट अभी के लिए समझ लीजिए कि कैजुअल टैक्सेबल पर्सन और नॉन रेसिडेंट टैक्सेबल पर्सन कॉम्पोजिशन में नहीं रजिस्टर कर सकते। देन ही हैज टू पे टैक्स अंडर 9(3) और 9(4). तो आप 9(3) और 9(4) को आप टर्नओवर तो उसमें टर्नओवर में इंक्लूड नहीं करोगे, लेकिन अगर आप एक एडवोकेट का सर्विस लेते हो, एडवोकेट को हमने पता है कि 9(3) के रिवर्स चार्ज में आता है, तब आप बोल सकते हो कि मेरा टर्नओवर 1% है, मैं रिवर्स चार्ज भी 1% पे करूंगा, नहीं। तब आपको रिवर्स चार्ज तो 18% पे करना ही पड़ेगा। ठीक है, आप अगर कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम में हो तो फिर आपको आउटवर्ड पे कंसेशन मिल रहा है आपको रिवर्स चार्ज पे कंसेशन नहीं मिलेगा, रिवर्स चार्ज पे आपको पे करना ही पड़ेगा एट दैट रेस्पेक्टिव रेट। ठीक है। और अगर मैं सप्लाई करता हूं एयर कंडीशनर का, थोड़ा बहुत मैंने इंस्टॉलेशन कर दिया, अब मेरे को सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज गुड्स है तो मैं सर्विसेज नहीं कर सकता हूं, बिकॉज आई शुड बी ओनली सप्लायर ऑफ गुड्स। अब मैंने छोटा मोटा इंस्टॉलेशन कर दिया तो फिर क्या मुझे बाहर निकालोगे? नहीं, आपको मार्जिनल सप्लाई करने के लिए देंगे। वो क्या है वो हम नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में देखते हैं कि कितना परसेंटेज अलाउड है। इफ सप्लाईज इंट्रास्टेट एंड इंटरस्टेट एलिजिबल फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन, नहीं। अगर आपने इंटरस्टेट एक भी कर दिया, 1 करोड़ का आपने इंट्रास्टेट कर दिया, 1 रुपए का इंटरस्टेट कर दिया है, आप कॉम्पोजिशन से बाहर हो जाओ। तो कॉम्पोजिशन सप्लायर इज अ स्मॉल सप्लायर, तो मतलब आप छोटे हो, आप बड़े हो जाओगे तो आपको ये बेनिफिट्स नहीं मिलेंगे, आपको रेगुलर में कन्वर्ट करना पड़ेगा। नाउ ठीक है, ये बाद में आते हैं। व्हाट इज दिस कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम? Composition scheme says services मार्जिनल सप्लाई, जो हमने बताया था कि आप थोड़ा बहुत सर्विस कर सकते हो, वो कितना है? सर्विसेज फॉर अ वैल्यू नॉट एक्सीडिंग 10% ऑफ द टर्नओवर इन द प्रिसीडिंग फाइनेंशियल ईयर। तो आपके पिछले साल के टर्नओवर का 10% और 5 lakhs विच एवर इज हायर, उतने तक आप सर्विसेज कर सकते हो। जैसे मैंने एयर कंडीशनर का बताया था, एयर कंडीशनर आप सप्लाई कर रहे हो 1 करोड़, पिछले साल 1 करोड़ था, उसका 10% हो गया 10 lakhs, करेक्ट? 10 lakhs और 5 lakhs विच एवर इज हायर 10 lakhs, तो आप इस साल 10 लाख तक के सर्विसेज कर सकते हो। ठीक है। और इस कैलकुलेशन में अगर आपने कुछ इंटरेस्ट पे लोन दिया है तब भी वो एक्सक्लूड हो जाएगा, तो वो कितना भी कर सकते हो, वो ये लिमिट में काउंट नहीं हो। ठीक है। और क्या करना है आपको? आपको डिस्क्लोज करना है आपके बोर्ड पे, आपके स्टेशनरी पे, सभी जगह पे, दैट यू आर अ कॉम्पोजिशन टैक्सेबल पर्सन एंड नॉट एलिजिबल टू कलेक्ट टैक्स ऑन सप्लाईज। क्यों करना पड़ेगा? अगर आप ये नहीं करोगे तो सामने वाला पूछेगा कि मुझे क्रेडिट दो, और आप तो उसको जीएसटी कलेक्ट भी नहीं कर सकते हो। वन ऑफ द कंडीशंस फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन इज आपका रेट इतना छोटा है कि आप वो जो टैक्स है अपने जेब से भरोगे, आप कस्टमर से कलेक्ट नहीं कर सकते हो। तो इसीलिए आप इनवॉइस नहीं रेस करोगे, आप बिल ऑफ सप्लाई रेस करोगे। बिल ऑफ सप्लाई का मतलब होता है कि मैं बिल दे रहा हूं सप्लाई के लिए, टैक्स इनवॉइस नहीं दे रहा हूं टैक्स कलेक्ट करने के लिए। अगर मैं टैक्स कलेक्ट करता हूं तब मैं टैक्स इनवॉइस देता हूं, लेकिन जब मैं सप्लाई करता हूं बिना टैक्स के, तो फिर मैं बिल ऑफ सप्लाई करता हूं। ठीक है। तो कॉम्पोजिशन सप्लायर से जो मैं खरीदता हूं उसके ऊपर मैं तो टैक्स पे नहीं करूंगा और मैं क्रेडिट भी नहीं लूंगा। क्लियर है? चलिए। और व्हाट इज द कंडीशन फॉर सर्विसेज? Condition for services is person making any supply of goods or services which are not liable to tax. अगर वो taxable leviable नहीं है तो services नहीं हो सकता है। Person making any interstate outward supplies, वो भी composition scheme of services में नहीं आ सकता है। Person supplying goods or services through an e-commerce operator who is required, वो भी नहीं आ सकता है। Supplier of notified services, अगर वो कुछ notify करते हैं तो। फिर a casual taxable person or a non-resident taxable person, they cannot come, and he also has to pay taxes under 9(3) or 9(4). Marginal supply repeat करना है। Okay. Sir, I have a question. Relief to small businesses comes under composition scheme or no? It comes, no? It comes under this. Apart from this, also, if you're under regular scheme, then you have another benefit there, that you have a scheme of QRMP, which means quarterly return and monthly payment. that is another benefit which you get. This is another benefit. So small businesses gets two benefit. One is pay under composition. Okay, file one return and pay quarterly. And if you are under normal scheme, you get another benefit, that pay quarterly returns you file and pay monthly. So you get two benefits. Whichever you want, you can opt for it. मार्जिनल सप्लाई में क्या क्वेश्चन है आपका? रश्मि, यू कैन अनम्यूट एंड आस्क.
सर इसमें मेरे को ये समझ में नहीं है, 10% ऑफ टर्नओवर इन स्टेट मींस क्या, किस पे टर्न 10%?
हाँ, हमने एक चीज बताई थी यहाँ पे कि अगर आप कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम में हो तब आप सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड नहीं कर सकते हो, क्योंकि कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम किसके लिए दिया है आपको? एज अ सप्लायर ऑफ गुड्स. ठीक है, तो आप ट्रेडर हो, मैन्युफैक्चरर हो, इसीलिए आपको दिया है. लेकिन कुछ ट्रेडर्स बोलने लगे कि नहीं, हम तो थोड़ा बहुत सर्विस करेंगे, उसके लिए आप हमारा पूरा कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम से बाहर क्यों निकाल रहे हो? तो इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट ने कहा कि हम आपको थोड़ा बहुत सर्विस करने के लिए देंगे. थोड़ा बहुत मतलब कितना थोड़ा बहुत, वो ये डिफाइन करता है कि आपका पिछले साल का जितना टर्नओवर है उसका 10% या फिर 5 लाख, जो कोई ज्यादा हो. एग्जाम्पल समझ गए आप?
सर पर आप जो एग्जांपल दिए थे, जैसे सीए फॉर्म का कि आप जैसे प्रोफेशनल हो वो भी कंपोजिशन स्कीम में जा सकते हैं, उसमें तो कोई हम गुड्स सप्लाई नहीं करते हैं, फिर ओनली फॉर ओनली
मतलब दो तरह के कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम है. एक कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम जिसे हमने यहाँ पे बताया था, ये गुड्स वाले हैं.
यस
ये गुड्स वाले हैं, ये सर्विस वाले हैं. तो हम सिर्फ इनकी बात कर रहे हैं. ये दो लोगों के लिए, मैन्युफैक्चरर और ट्रेडर के लिए, ये जो गुड्स सप्लाई करते हैं इनको थोड़ा बहुत सर्विस प्रोवाइड करने की इजाजत दी गई.
ओके ओके सर.
और जो सर्विस प्रोवाइड कर रहा है वो तो सर्विस प्रोवाइड कर ही रहा है, वो तो सिर्फ सर्विस ही प्रोवाइड करेगा. ये अलग कैटेगरी का हो गया और ये अलग कैटेगरी के हो गए. इनको 10% ऑफ द प्रीवियस ईयर या 5 lakhs विच एवर इज हायर, उतने तक का सर्विस प्रोवाइड कर सकते. नाउ व्हेन यू कैन ऑप्ट फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन, कब आप कॉम्पोजिशन के लिए आ सकते हो? जब आप नया रजिस्ट्रेशन करते हो तभी आपका एक कॉलम आता है, आर यू लायब, डू यू वांट ऑप्ट फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन? यस, तो फिर आप कॉम्पोजिशन में भर्ती हो जाओगे. व्हेन? फ्रॉम द डेट व्हेन द रजिस्ट्रेशन इज इफेक्टिव. नए रजिस्ट्रेशन का सिंपल है. अगर आप एग्जिस्टिंग रजिस्ट्रेशन हो और आपको कन्वर्ट करना है तो फिर आप साल के बीच में नहीं कर सकते. You have to file intimation electronically and statement of stock within 60 days of financial year. आपका effective date होगा from the beginning of the financial year. साल के बीच में आपको composition में admission नहीं. आपका admission खुलता है साल के पहले, अप्रैल के पहले आपको application डालना है और from 1st April आपको composition में admission मिल जाएगा. ठीक है? वैलिडिटी ऑफ कॉम्पोजिशन, जब तक आप रहो, जब तक आपको विड्रॉ नहीं करना है तब तक आप कॉम्पोजिशन में रहो. आपको विड्रॉ करना है तो फिर 7 दिन पहले विड्रॉ कर सकते हो. कब? जब आपको आपका टर्नओवर 1.5 करोड़ से क्रॉस हो गया तो आपको रेगुलर में कंपलसरी आना ही पड़ेगा. ऐसा नहीं कि मेरे का तो और 1-2 महीने बचे हैं, मेरे को सिर्फ कॉम्पोजिशन में चलाओ, नहीं. आपका 1.5 करोड़ टच हो गया, आपको कॉम्पोजिशन से निकल के रेगुलर में आना ही पड़ेगा. जैसे मैंने अप्रैल में कॉम्पोजिशन लिया है, जनवरी में 1.5 करोड़ खत्म हो गया, तो फिर मेरे को जनवरी तक कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम चलेगा, 1% पे करूंगा और फिर उसके बाद रेगुलर स्कीम में आ जाऊंगा. फरवरी और मार्च में मैं रेगुलर स्कीम एज अ रेगुलर टैक्स पेयर बन जाऊंगा. ठीक है, तब क्या फर्क होगा, पहले मैं 1% पे करता था, अभी मैं 18% या 12% जो भी मेरे गुड्स है उसके ऊपर मेरे को उतना पे करना पड़ेगा। जो इनपुट का क्या होगा, जब आप कॉम्पोजिशन में थे इनपुट क्लेम नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन आप रेगुलर स्कीम में आ जाओगे तो फिर आपको इनपुट क्रेडिट भी मिल जाएगा। लेकिन अगर टैक्स अथॉरिटीज बोलते हैं नहीं हम आपको कॉम्पोजिशन से रेगुलर में नहीं आएंगे, तो फिर वो बोल सकते हैं। लेकिन बोलने से पहले आपको उनको आपको रिजेक्ट करने से पहले एक शो कॉज नोटिस देना पड़ेगा कि हम आपका एप्लीकेशन खारिज करते हैं, आपका रिप्लाई देख के फिर वो ऑर्डर पास कर सकते हैं, ऐसे ही नहीं। ठीक है। और आपको एक टैक्स स्टॉक स्टेटमेंट फाइल करने पड़ेगा, क्योंकि आपके जो कॉम्पोजिशन में थे तब आपको इनपुट क्रेडिट नहीं मिल रहा था, लेकिन आप नॉर्मल स्कीम में आओगे तब आपको आगे जो हमारे पास स्टॉक था उसके ऊपर हमको क्रेडिट लेने दीजिए। ठीक है, आप स्टॉक स्टेटमेंट फाइल कीजिए, 30 दिन के अंदर उसका आप क्रेडिट ले सकते हो। ठीक है, यह थोड़े क्वेश्चन एंड आंसर है। फर्स्ट विल गो टू द एमसीक्यू, देन विल कम टू दिस क्वेश्चन आंसर्स ऑन द कॉम्पोजिशन। ओके, so answer these questions, and if you have any questions also you can ask. Okay. Restaurant service 5% composition, can they collect GST from customer? Actually no, they cannot collect, but I know most of the restaurants are collecting it. The government is saying that if you're under composition you cannot collect, but most of the restaurants are collecting it. Food at restaurant generally it's at 5%, yes. One composition scheme opted under that RCM, what do next penalty or interest? Yes, if you have not paid, then interest and penalty will definitely come. So you pay that voluntarily now with interest. Penalty can be levied by the officers when they do a assessment. First one option, yes, everybody is right. It is Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir, and Puducherry. Second one, Mr. A is a trader of goods in the state of Sikkim, having its turnover of 69 lakhs in the preceding financial year. Is Mr. A eligible for opting for composition scheme? यस नो नहीं मैडम, ऑप्शन 4 है। कौन सा वाला ऑप्शन बताइएगा। ठीक है, इतना डिटेल वाला आंसर डोंट एक्सपेक्ट कि आपको सीए एग्जाम में मिलेगा। यहाँ पे सिर्फ हम लोग प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं इसीलिए मिल रहा है, वरना इट विल जस्ट बी वेरी अब्स्ट्रैक्ट। आपको लॉ अप्लाई करना है सिक्किम के लिए। 75 lakhs, it's a special category state, so yes, he is eligible. What is the turnover limit for service provider to opt for composition scheme? Okay. Yes, the answer is B, 50 lakh rupees. Mr. A is a non-resident taxable person supplying goods in the state of Himachal Pradesh. His turnover is 87 lakhs. Is Mr. A eligible to opt for composition scheme? फोर ए फोर डी, ए और डी में गाड़ी अटक गई है, बी में भी अटक गई है. ओके, so the point to be noted in this question is no composition scheme shall not apply to a non-resident taxable person. ठीक है, so it's a non-resident taxable person, so that limit वगैरह कुछ भी apply नहीं होगा because a composition scheme is not available to a non-resident taxable person. A is a manufacturer who is opted for composition scheme. Is he eligible to provide services? सिंपल सा है. C, yes, he can provide services up to 10 lakhs or 5 lakhs, whichever is higher. Sixth question, the GST will be payable by a composition dealer who is a manufacturer is liable for GST. What is the GST rate basically? Correct. Correct answer is A, 1% of the turnover in a state. GST payable का composition dealer who is a trader is liable to GST at simple 1% of the taxable supplies. ठीक है, so that's the difference between a trader and a manufacturer. What GST rate is chargeable for services supplied by goods transport agency? D. Very good. 5% and 12%. 5% under with without ITC and 12% with ITC. Mr. A.R. Rahman has composed music to a music company who is located in a taxable territory. Is he liable to pay GST? Okay, this what does it say is services by a music composer was always for payable under reverse charge. So services by a music composer falls under reverse charge. He has provided music services, so he's liable to pay GST? No. In case of that reverse charge, when you read that notification number 13, you'll see that music composer always falls under reverse charge. So it will be under reverse charge mechanism. Then Mr. X is registered taxpayer under GST. He has three branches, which is in Karnataka, AP, and Telangana. All three branches are registered in the respective states with the same PAN, correct? Because he's a one person having things, so he'll have one PAN, different GST number. Now, Mr. X wishes to opt for composition scheme for AP and Telangana, and he wishes to be remaining regular taxpayer in Karnataka. Can he do so? Wow. 10 का तो आंसर ए बी सी, बस डी कोई दे दे तो सब कुछ कवर हो जाएगा. Yes, he can opt for composition scheme for Andhra Pradesh because both are treated as distinct person. No composition has to be adopted uniformly. Yes, he can opt for composition scheme because our three branches are registered in different state. All three look so convincing and confusing. But if you are opting for composition scheme in one state, you cannot keep away from composition from another state. If you're opting for composition, you have to opt for composition in all the locations. So the correct answer is this. No, composition scheme has to be adopted uniformly by all the registered persons having the same PAN. अगर आप एक PAN के अंदर registered हो under multiple states or within the same under multiple registrations, all the branches has to be under composition. Optional for each registration नहीं मिलेगा. Which are the following statements are true with respect to composition scheme supplier? कॉम्पोजिशन सप्लायर सुमित आउटवर्ड पे टैक्स इनवॉइस लेस नहीं कर रहे, लेकिन आईटीसी क्लेम कर सकता है. हाउ डिड यू गेट दिस? करेक्ट आंसर इज बी. He can issue bill of supply, cannot collect tax on outward supplies, and ITC cannot be claimed. Okay. Last question: what is not an advantage of composition scheme? Correct. D. More compliance required. This is not a advantage. Other things are all the advantages of a composition scheme. Okay. Before we wind up, there is one slide which I wanted to show on the calculation front of how that calculation happens, which we were discussing. Now, Mr. A is a dealer who is selling goods which are leviable to GST, exempted goods and non-taxable goods. His turnover in the preceding year is 110 lakhs, 20 lakhs and 30 lakhs, which is for GST, exempted goods and non-taxable goods, whether he is eligible for composition scheme. So when you calculate the aggregate turnover, we have to consider the total turnover, which means the total turnover, 110, which is of लेविएबल टू जीएसटी, एग्जेम्प्टेड 20 lakhs. एग्जेम्प्टेड के ऊपर आप जीएसटी तो पे नहीं करोगे, ठीक है, और नॉन टैक्सेबल के ऊपर भी आप जीएसटी पे नहीं करोगे. बट फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर, इट इंक्लूड्स ऑल टाइप्स ऑफ सप्लाईज मेड. So if a person is selling goods which are not labeled tax under GST, he is not eligible to opt for composition scheme. In this case, aggregate turnover exceeds 150 lakhs because total देखोगे आप taxable turnover, exempted turnover, non-taxable turnover, 110 plus 20, 130 plus 30, 160 lakhs. और limit क्या है? 150 lakhs. So it is crossing. He is not eligible for composition. ठीक है? One more example. A person has two establishments, one in Uttarakhand and Rajasthan. The
तीनों भर गई है. अरे कहाँ चले गए सर थोड़े से.
Okay, so turnover in Uttarakhand and Rajasthan. राजस्थान का टर्नओवर 60 लाख है, उत्तराखंड का 30 लाख है. दोनों में बिलो लिमिट है. उत्तराखंड का लिमिट कितना है? इट्स अ स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट एंड इट इज 75 lakhs. तो उत्तराखंड में तो 30 है, बिलो 75 lakhs. राजस्थान में 1.5 crores है, 60 lakhs. So can he opt for composition? नो, स्टिल ही कैनॉट opt for composition क्योंकि उत्तराखंड का लिमिट कितना है? 75 lakhs. 30 lakhs उत्तराखंड में कर रहा है, लेकिन टोटल 60 plus 30 90 हो जाते हैं, लेकिन तो एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर, देन ही कैनॉट opt for composition इन उत्तराखंड neither इन राजस्थान. दोनों में तो इंडिविजुअली बिलो द लिमिट्स है, लेकिन एग्रीगेट में मोर देन द एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर ऑफ द स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट है, सो ही कैनॉट opt for composition. So these are the pointers which I wanted to make you and highlight कि ये important pointers on calculation turnover of previous year के लिए और turnover for a special category state. If instead of Uttarakhand it was Haryana, then he is eligible. Yes, good example. Yes, Rouhani, then he is eligible. Any questions on the chapter of charge, reverse charge, or composition scheme? Awesome. E-commerce turnover limit. E-commerce turnover limit is not there. You can do any kind of e-commerce transaction. There's no limit as such. Okay. So see you on Friday on the next chapter. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir.